Okay. Hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, and writer. It is Saturday, April 27th, 2019, and we are live. So everybody share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. All right. So I saw this article from blackenterprise.com. I saw this article back a couple of weeks ago, about 10 days ago, April 17th, okay? And I didn't have a chance to deal with this topic, but I wanted to get to it tonight. So this deals with Trump's 2020 budget, and this is an example of how elections have consequences. And this deals with how and one aspect of Trump's 2020 budget that he submitted to Congress, how it negatively impacts African-American owned businesses, okay? It can have a very devastating impact on African-American owned businesses. So let me post the information for tonight's broadcast, and you can share this also. Jasmine said Obama did even less. No, that's not true, Jasmine. You should go do some research. That's not true. That's a false statement. Okay. All right. So this blackenterprise.com has an article dealing with Trump's 2020 budget is a recipe for disaster for Black businesses, says the U.S. Black Chamber of Commerce. Okay, we're going to post a link to these articles because I'm going to share a number of different articles with you. And it's important for people to actually do research as opposed to repeating nonsense that they heard other people repeat and then go do any research. This is part of the problem. All right, so, and also we're going to talk about how the 35-day government shutdown will deal a little bit with how that negatively impacted African-American owned businesses also, because this ties right into the discussion as well. And this is something that a lot of people don't want to talk about. You've seen some of my broadcasts in the past where I have dealt with this, okay? And I'm somebody who taught entrepreneurship for 7 years. My degree is not in history, it's in business administration with a major in marketing from Wayne State University here in Detroit, okay? So I did business consulting for 7 years. I know a little something about business. All right. So and let me just share this link quickly here. All right. So if you look at this article from April 17th, 2019, from blackenterprise.com. Okay, so a lot of people heard about the $4.7 trillion proposed budget from Donald Trump. We saw hearings that the House of Representatives had. We saw Betsy DeVos on Capitol Hill being grilled by members of the House of Representatives dealing with $7 billion in cuts to education from Betsy DeVos. Also, there was an article that we posted actually today on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, and my personal page, Michael Imhotep, that dealt with Betsy DeVos being grilled in front of Congress on proposed budget cuts, but also how she's lenient on charter schools that have wasted millions and millions of dollars from the federal government. And in some cases, these charter schools opened and closed in the same year. Okay, all this deals with politics. Okay, so it's important for people to understand that politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. It's important for people to understand this. Okay, so let's look at this article here from blackenterprise.com. So it talks about how small African-American owned businesses among the nation's most rapidly growing firms in recent years, because there's over 3 million African-American owned businesses now, really close to 4 million, because it's about 2.6 million Black female owned businesses now. And Fortune.com has a good article that deals with this: Black women entrepreneurs, the good and not so good news. Black women entrepreneurs, the good and not so good news, from September 9th, 2018. Okay, so um, small African-American owned businesses among the nation's most rapidly growing firms in recent years could be hindered by Donald Trump's budget cuts, entrepreneur advocates say. Now, U.S. Senator Ben Cardin, Democrat from Maryland, recently stated that the Trump administration's fiscal year 2020 budget could cost small businesses millions in additional loan fees owed to the U.S. Small Business Administration and reduce critical business counseling. Okay, he and organizations like the U.S. Black Chamber of Commerce, which is the USBC, are concerned that the proposed budget will burden the Small Business Administration, which African American and other minority-owned firms often turn to for capital and support to help grow their businesses. And then we look at the uptick of African-American female-owned businesses. This helped the Small Business Administration achieve double-digit dollar gains in 2018 in loan approvals for those firms. And Black Enterprise reported on this as well. And if we look at, let's see, there's an article from Black Enterprise also from September 23rd, 2018, the state of Black women-owned businesses. And this looked at the 2018 State of Women-Owned Business Report, which is put out each year by American Express Open. Okay, and they talk about how the number of women-owned businesses in general increased by 3,000% since 1972. And the report examines trends in women businesses, including Black women businesses, based on the 2012 survey of business owners and annual gross domestic product estimates. And so that 2012 survey of business owners, that's probably the one that the Census Bureau does. They do it basically every 7 years, if I remember correctly. Okay, so the one before that one was in 2007. Okay, so they talk about how women-owned businesses are growing much faster than all businesses from 2007 to 2018. Women-owned businesses have grown by 58% in terms of number of firms and 46% in terms of revenue. Okay, what's driving these numbers are women of color. Women of color over that same period of time are starting businesses at a much faster rate. And the number of firms owned by African-American women has grown by 164% since 2007. And in this article here, I want to see if they give the actual number of the businesses. When we look at the one from Forbes.com, it was a really, really detailed article. And they talk about how there are 2.4 million African-American female-owned businesses in 2018. Now, most of those businesses are owned by African-American women 35 to 54 years old, okay? And that is also in the 2018 State of Women-Owned Business Report. Okay, so let's go back to the first article from Black Enterprise. I just want to give you some background information. How's everybody doing tonight? Now, African-American business owners also post the name of your business here on the thread of the broadcast. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network as well. Email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com, customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. Okay, post the name of your African-American owned business here. Okay, let's continue here. How's everybody doing? And share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. All right. So a senior administration official stated that the Small Business Administration's total new request in Trump's fiscal year 2020 budget is $820 million. Total new request, $820 million. He added that he added that amount is offset by fiscally responsible proposals to provide the SBA the flexibility to adjust existing fee structure across its business loan guarantee programs. The adjustments mean the SBA, Small Business Administration, could have an actual operating budget of $665 million next year, which is a 5% reduction from its annualized budget of 2019. Okay, now in fall 2018, Trump directed federal agencies And let me monitor the sound here. Okay, Trump in fall of 2018, Trump directed federal agencies to identify how they can cut a nickel out of every dollar or 5 cents out of every 100 cents. The spokesman said. Now, Trump mentioned hardworking American families making these sorts of tough decisions every day. He believes Washington should be no different. Okay, now the U.S. Black Chamber of Commerce serves roughly 250,000 small businesses. And they recently called Trump's budget, quote, a low blow to Black business progress, a low blow to Black business progress. The potential budget cuts come after the most recent U.S. government shutdown hurt small businesses. One report claims over $2 billion in Small Business Administration loans were deferred to those firms tied to the shutdown. Now, it was a 35-day government shutdown, and it was caused because Trump did not want to approve the budget. He wanted to hold out. He wanted to extort money from Congress to build this fake wall that he lied and said Mexico was going to pay for. And most experts dealing with immigration would tell you that building a wall is not going to deter people from coming to this country. And at the same time, the Border Patrol has discovered 230 underground tunnels since 1990. And a lot of people are coming through the underground tunnels, and drugs are coming through the underground tunnels also. The wall won't stop that. Also, Trump talks about fighting against drugs coming to this country. Well, most of the illegal drugs that don't come underneath the tunnels, they come through legal ports of entry. So the wall is not going to stop that as well. And the majority of undocumented immigrants coming to this country don't come across the southern border. They actually come here legally on visas, and they overstay their visas. And Trump really doesn't want to address this. He wants to make you think the majority of undocumented immigrants are coming through the southern border illegally. And at the same time, he has directed Border Patrol to block those seeking political asylum at the legal ports where they can seek political asylum. He's directed them to block those, and he wants to demonize people who are trying to seek international political asylum, which is legal. International political asylum is based upon international law that the U.S. was involved in drafting. Okay, so and at the same time, while Trump is trying to demonize people seeking international political asylum, he is exploiting the labor of undocumented immigrants working at his golf courses and resorts in New Jersey and New York. Imagine that. So January 8th, 2019, during the 35-day government shutdown that Trump calls, he gave a nighttime address from the West Wing, what have you, the Oval Office, what have you. And he's talking about undocumented immigrants taking jobs from Hispanics and African Americans, while at the same time he's exploiting the labor of undocumented immigrants at his properties. So the undocumented immigrants that he fired from his golf courses in New York and New Jersey, is he not going to give those jobs to African Americans and Hispanics? I mean, that's a valid question. All right, how you doing, Angie, Jesse? How's everybody doing? Ruby, how's everybody doing tonight? African American business owners, post the name of your business here, the thread of the broadcast. Email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. Current promotion, get 3 months for the price of one. We have 3 new sponsors. We have the Knick-Knack Company that just came on today, the Knick-Knack Company, so you'll hear about them, darkmagentas.com and theprofitroom.com. Okay, so we have 3 new sponsors. We have a few more spots left also. All right, let's continue. So this is an example of how elections have consequences. And keep in mind, politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. So when people are talking about elections, especially for president, usually they don't talk about the annual budget that the president submits to Congress. Congress has to approve the budget. And you have to have the right people in place to fight for aspects of the budget that you are concerned about. Otherwise, you're going to be in big trouble. Okay, let's continue. So the U.S. Small Business Administration, which serves roughly 250,000 small businesses, said of Trump's 2020 budget, it's a low blow to his proposed budget. It's a low blow to Black business progress. Okay. So the potential budget cuts come after the most recent U.S. government shutdown from small businesses. One report claims $2 billion in Small Business Administration loans were deferred to those firms tied to the shutdown. Now, African-American owned businesses were hurt. African-American owned businesses and African-American contractors were hurt disproportionately by this government shutdown. Okay, so if we look at some of the statistics, African Americans are about 10.5% of the civilian labor force, but they're 18.4% of federal employees. Okay, so this was a partial government shutdown. There were a lot of African American employees who worked for the government who were laid off. Now they're going to get back pay. Contractors do not get back pay. Okay, so according to data from the Office of Personnel Management, the share of federal workers who are African American women is roughly twice as high in the federal government as it is in the greater civilian workforce. So 10.5% of the civilian workforce are made up of African Americans. But when we look at African American women, they make up whatever percentage they make up in the civilian workforce is double that when it comes to federal workers. And we know about 80% of African-American households are headed by a single female. So when you talk about, even though this is a partial government shutdown, not a full government shutdown, when you talk about a partial government shutdown, you're talking about this disproportionately negatively impacting African-American households for a number of reasons. All right, now this won't be new to anyone who studies race in America or is cognizant of how it works, but it's going to disproportionately affect women. So this article here came out during the government shutdown. This is from January 14th, 2019. All right, when we know that government shutdown, I think it ended late January because it started about December 22nd. So the name of this article is from NPR.org. It's called Barely Treading Water. Barely Treading Water, While the Shutdown Disproportionately Affects Black Americans. This is from National Public Radio, NPR.org. Barely Treading Water, While the Shutdown Disproportionately Affects Black Americans, okay? Once again, this is an example of how elections have consequences. And who caused the shutdown? It was Trump. After he talked about after he has asked African Americans, what the hell do you have to lose? Had to lose a lot. Okay, so check out this article here. They deal with disparities when it comes to wealth in African Americans. We know that is generational. That comes from a maldistribution of wealth, power, and resources, a legacy of slavery. Okay, 246 years of slavery, decades of Jim Crow segregation, etc. And then there was also a good article from thegrio.com. Experts state the shutdown has deeply affected Black families. Experts state the shutdown has deeply affected Black families. And this all ties into policy, okay? The nation is in the midst of, so almost a month into this government shutdown, the damage is not only taking place on the national economy, but it's also affecting many African-American federal workers and their families. National Public Radio's All Things Considered host Ari Shapiro spoke with Guardian reporter, the Guardian.co.uk, Guardian reporter Jamil Larty about how the shutdown has disproportionately affected Blacks. who make up more of the federal workforce than any other population. In the interview, Ari Shapiro stated that for generations, government work has provided good wages and job security for African Americans who have faced discrimination in the private sector. But Black families not only have a fraction of the wealth of white families, so the average white family has a 2016 $171,000 in wealth compared to 17,000 in accumulated wealth for the average Black family. But so Black families not only have a fraction of the wealth of white families, but also since many of them live paycheck to paycheck, they are being severely affected by the shutdown. Quote, the profound racial gap in the US makes it far more difficult for the average Black American to sustain a long period without a paycheck as compared with a white American, end quote. And keep in mind, during that government shutdown, some of those employees, some of those different departments, like TSA, they had to work and not get a paycheck also. They had to put gas in their cars, drive to work, get their uniforms cleaned, put food on the table, and not have a paycheck. Okay, so and what we see is that not only do African Americans make up 18.4% of the federal workforce, okay, federal employees, but also African American businesses make up 11.7% of registered federal contractors. Okay, so when you talk about a partial government shutdown like what happened, you're talking about African American businesses that have government contracts being laid off, their employees being laid off, not getting a paycheck. Okay, so this has a devastating ripple effect. And there was an article from the Washington Post that I talked about on my radio show Sunday nights, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the African History Network show. There was an article from January 27th, 2019 from the Washington Post called "It Feels Like We Are Still Hostages." It feels like we are still hostages. Federal contractors who lost health insurance during shutdown remain in limbo. And this is dealing with the devastating impact. And they interviewed African Americans and African American owned business here. This is dealing with the devastating impact that 35-day shutdown had on African Americans. Now we're talking about budget cuts to the SBA, Small Business Administration, which is going to have a devastating impact on us also. Okay, so let's continue. How's everybody doing? Okay, Ruby, how's everybody doing? You hate being called what? Why? You don't think you're an African? Ruby, you have to do some research. The first Americans were Africans. See, this is what happens when we've been orientated and somebody else's culture has been superimposed upon us. Black comes from the Old English word black, which means to bleach or to make white. The first Americans were Africans, documented evidence by Dr. David Imhotep. African people been in this land going back at least 51,700 years. We never stopped being African. We just forgot it. And we've been taught to hate Africa while everybody else is in Africa exploiting the mineral wealth, etc. And then when you read things like Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization by Tony Browder, okay, we understand that the science, the mathematics, the art, all this stuff comes out of ancient Africa. It's the teachings from the Africans known as the Moors, who take these teachings from ancient Kemet, from ancient Egypt into Europe, and it brings Europe out of the Dark Ages. If it hadn't been for the Africans called the Moors, who go into the Iberian Peninsula, the day known as Spain and Portugal, in 711 AD, taking the teachings from ancient Kemet in the Nile Valley region of Africa, in ancient Africa in general, into Europe, Europe would still be in the Dark Ages. Read Black Star, the African presence in early Europe by Runoko Rashidi, which deals with the history of the Africans known as the Moors going into Europe, taking these teachings into Europe. Read Golden Age of the Moor by Dr. Ivan Van Sertima. Golden Age of the Moor, which deals with the 800 years that the Africans known as the Moors are in Europe. And this sets up Christopher Columbus to set sail on his 4 voyages starting August 3rd, 1492, when he set sail on the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. Okay, that's enough for the history lesson. Okay, if you like that type of information, you can also register for the online courses that I teach, where I go deep into thousands of years of history. We have them all on demand, 10-course online bundle pack. We have that 14-hour, 7-session online course I teach, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school, where I deal with thousands of years of history and how all this leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. And that's also at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, on the homepage. All right, so let's continue. How's everybody doing? All right, so let's go back to the first article from blackenterprise.com. This is entitled, Trump's 2020 Budget is a Recipe of Disaster for Black Businesses, says the U.S. Black Chamber of Commerce. This is from blackenterprise.com. Okay, so let's continue here. So the Small Business Administration's loan program, the SBA, the agency's primary and most common lending program is called SBA, is called 7A. 7A loan program. This is the agency's primary and most common lending program. It approved 696 loans for just over 166.7 million for African American women businesses. This was up 3% in the number of loans, and 20%. It was a 20% jump in dollar amount in the fiscal year 2018 from 2017. Now, businesses can use loans from that program for multiple purposes, okay, including working capital, acquiring land, or purchasing equipment. When the SBA announced last October 2018, its fiscal year 2018 lending numbers, the agency revealed it guaranteed over $30 billion to small businesses that otherwise would not have had access to capital. The activity included over 72,000 approved loans, okay? 72,000 in general. Now, Senator Cardin, a ranking member of the U.S. Senate Committee on Small Business and Entrepreneurship, stated Trump's fiscal year 2020 budget proposes these cuts to programs that benefit small businesses. A 23% budget cut to funding for small business development centers. The centers offer counseling to U.S. small businesses, allowing them to improve their capacity and increase their productivity. Higher loan fees on the thousands of businesses participating in the SBA's loan programs, leading to increased borrowing costs for small local businesses seeking to grow. Okay, higher loan fees on the thousands of businesses participating in the SBA's loan programs, leading to increased borrowing costs for small local businesses seeking to grow. A 5% cut to the SBA's microloan program, and a 19% cut to the agency's microloan technical assistance program, both of which disproportionately serve women, quote unquote, minority and rural small businesses. Okay, so this has a negative impact not just on African Americans, but also Hispanic women-owned businesses, et cetera, and then those in rural areas as well. So Senator Cardin says small businesses which operate on razor-thin margins, okay, for small businesses which operate on major thin margins, the budget is bad for business. On the heels of a month, he said, quote, on the heels of a month of long government shutdown, on the heels of a month-long government shutdown, the cost of small businesses billions of dollars, okay? This budget is another, hold on just a second. Okay, this budget is another sign that small businesses are not a priority, but an afterthought for the Trump administration. Now, the U.S. Black Chamber of Commerce President Ron Busby called the budget a, quote, recipe for disaster, end quote, a recipe for disaster for small business owners. In a statement, he said, quote, as the voice of the nation's Black business owners, we are unequivocally against Trump's proposed budget cuts and see it as a threat to Black business progress. Okay, we are unequivocally against Trump's proposed budget cuts and see it as a threat to Black business progress. Black entrepreneurs remain the fastest growing population in the small business community, yet continues to endure a government that stifles small business progress, end quote. So remember the last couple months of Trump running in 2016, he talked about what all he was going to do for Black people. He said, what the hell do you have to lose? And we see he's reversed over 100 policies that President Obama has had in place. You have the Department of Justice under attack. You have the Civil Rights Division under attack. You saw Jeff Sessions reverse Attorney General Eric Holder's 2013 initiative, Smart on Crime, which backed off of charging nonviolent low-level drug offenders with the longest, harshest sentences. Jeff Sessions reversed that. We see the Department of Education under attack. We see them rolling back regulations on not just charter schools, but also on predatory colleges. Okay, and we see Betsy DeVos trying to stall the loan forgiveness programs that President Obama put in place dealing with people who took out loans from predatory colleges. We know that African-American women carry more student loan debt than anybody, on average $30,400 when they graduate from college, when they graduate from a four-year institution. African-American women carry more student loan debt than anybody else. So when you talk about student loan forgiveness, okay, that disproportionately positively impacts African-American women and their families. This is all dealing with how elections have consequences, and this is all dealing with understanding how politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. Okay, and this is something people don't understand. They get caught up in personalities. Okay, they get caught up in personalities. You're not taking them to the prom. You're not going to marry them. All right, we're dealing with pushing our issues to get policies in place that are beneficial for us. And I encourage people to read the document also, African American Resistance in the I'm sorry, no, that's my lecture. Read the document, what's it called? Progress of the African American Community under the Obama administration. Read that document, okay? Progress of the African American Community under the Obama administration, because that document deals with, it shows you how policies from the Obama administration directly positively impacted African Americans. And these are a lot of policies that Trump has reversed or they are under attack. Okay, it's at whitehouse.gov. Progress of the African American Community under the Obama administration. I think I have a copy of it because I printed it up. I think I have a copy of it here, and I deal with it in a lot of my presentations. Every city I lecture in, I ask people have they read it, and I've never had anybody who's actually read it. I never came across anybody who's actually read when I do lectures in Chicago or let me see, Atlanta, San Diego, different cities I'm in, even in Detroit. I ask people have they read it. They haven't read it. I don't understand why. So we just posted the link here, and it's at whitehouse.gov. Okay. And you can just search for that. It's still up. Trump hasn't taken it down yet. It was up during the Obama administration. A lot of people didn't know about it. If people had read that prior to the November 8th, 2016 election, Trump probably would not be president right now because people would have seen how those policies impacted them, and those policies were at risk. Okay, but this is what happens when you don't know that you don't know. And I just saw it here, so it's in one of these stacks. I have to find it later. It's in one of my file folders. It's in one of my stacks. I just saw it. It may be in the file folder I took with me to the event today because I just saw it. That's the Pew Research Center on voter turnout in the 2016 election. Here it is right here. I know I just saw it. So yeah, so read this. Okay. This is at whitehouse.gov. Progress of the African American community during the Obama administration. Okay. Because this shows you an example of how elections have consequences. All right. And then there's one from the Congressional Black Caucus called What Did Trump Do? What Did Trump Do? And that one shows you how policies from Trump in the first 100 days of his administration, how it negatively impacted the African American community. It actually details the policies, his reversal of policies, executive orders, appointments, nominations, things like that. It shows you his first 100 days, how it negatively impacted the African American community. It's called What Did Trump Do? That's at cbc.house.gov, cbc.house.gov. Okay, that's the official website of the Congressional Black Caucus. Okay, African American business owners, post the name of your business here on the thread of the broadcast. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. Email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. Customer service at africanhistorynetwork.com. Our current promotions get 3 months for the price of one. We have a new advertiser, the Knick-Knack Company. Now, Knick-Knack Company. Now, ladies, you're going to like this, and men who like to see ladies in shoes and high heel shoes, you'll like this as well. Very soul sophisticated, S-O-L-E. Very soul sophisticated for the soul, S-O-U-L. The Knick-Knackery Company is a new online shoe store launching soon. Out of a divine love for shoes, the Knick-Knackery Company was born. Their signature soles are artfully handcrafted in small-owned factories to bring you both timeless and on-trend shoes, which have uncompromised construction, showering women with unique creations for their souls is their mission. These creations are for the very sophisticated woman, just like you, who loves quality and uniqueness. They love their soul sisters, and they look forward to serving you soon. Follow them on Facebook at the Knick-Knackery Company, on Instagram, Knick-Knackery, that's K and K, Knick-Knackery CO, Pinterest, Knick-Knackery CO, and you can sign up. Because their website hasn't launched yet, but you can sign up, give them your email address at launch.shopknickknacks.com/join us. That's launch.shopknickknacks, KNICKNACKS, knickknacks.com/join us. And I'll post a link here as well. Okay. So African American business owners, email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. We take a 30-second to 60-second audio commercial, put into the audio podcast of our Sunday night show, the African History Network show, on 8 different podcast platforms: iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, Castbox, Stitcher, etc. And then also we promote your business also during a live broadcast we do throughout the week that are on Facebook Live and our YouTube channel as well. Okay, customer service at africanhistorynetwork.com. We have a few slots left. Our current promotion is get 3 months for the price of one, so we can get you up and running today. Okay, let's look at some of your comments here, who we have. Everybody share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. Okay, let me go back here, see who we have here. Okay, Phyllis, how you doing, Phyllis? Who else we have? Onique, Peter, Tim, Ariana, How's everybody doing? Angie J. Okay, share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. Okay, let's go back to the first article from blackenterprise.com. Okay, blackenterprise.com. This is entitled, Trump's 2020 budget is a recipe of disaster for Black businesses, says the U.S. Black Chambers. Okay, and we'll post this link here also for this article. It's a pretty good one. They have some links to some other articles from blackenterprise.com. That's some really good information on African-American female-owned businesses, things like that. They are a really good resource. I've been reading them since college. Blackenterprise.com. Okay, so let's continue here. Okay, so Ron Busby, president of the U.S. Black Chamber of Commerce, he isn't too thrilled with Donald Trump's 2020 proposed budget and how it would negatively impact African-American-owned businesses. He said Trump's budget is a recipe for disaster for small business owners. Okay, he said, as the voice of the nation's Black business owners, we are unequivocally against Trump's proposed budget cuts, and we see it as a threat to Black business progress. Black entrepreneurs remain the fastest growing population in the small business community, yet continues to endure a government that stifles small business progress, end quote. Likewise, Nadia Velasquez, Democrat from New York, member of the House of Representatives, she is the House Small Business Committee chairwoman. She blasted Trump's 2020 budget for cutting funding for the Small Business Administration's, for the SBA, a critical resource for entrepreneurs. She said, quote, the president is proposing a 5% cut to the Small Business Administration, doing so by reducing funds to proven entrepreneurial development initiatives. At the same time as it seeks to enact these cuts, the budget also would raise fees on small businesses that access capital through the SBA. So they're going to cut funding to the Small Business Administration and also raise the amount of the fees that small businesses are paying on loans that they have as well. Okay, so that is a recipe for disaster. But once again, this is what I try to explain to a lot of my friends who preach economic empowerment. Government helps to create an environment that businesses operate in. I'm all for economic empowerment. I've been preaching that since the early 90s when I was in college. But I also understand that government impacts business. Regulations impacts business. Government policies impact business and help to create an environment that businesses operate in. There's no way to get around that. Okay, so check out these articles and then also look at the one dealing with African Americans during the government shutdown, because that government shutdown was critical. Not only that, what people have seemed to have forgotten is that federal contractors who did not get paid during those 35 days, they don't get back pay unless Congress is going to pass a law to give them back pay. They're just out of what, a month's worth of pay. Okay, and if you are an African American owned business, and remember, 11.4% of federal contractors are African American owned businesses, 11.4% of them. If you have a government contract, you have employees, right? If you're out of work for a month, you're not getting paid. Your business isn't getting paid. Your employees are sitting there. Now, you're going to pay the employees. Can you handle the payroll to pay them while they're off work for a month? Or are you going to say, we're off work for a month, I can't pay you, because you still have bills coming in. You have to pay for their health insurance if they have health insurance. And if you read the article from Washington Post during that shutdown, It dealt with African-American owned businesses. It's called It Feels Like We Are Still Hostages. Federal contractors who lost health insurance during shutdown remain in limbo. And it talked about Unispec Enterprises. And this was a African-American owned business. But in the article, it says Janice Morgan, a federal contractor, and let me try to pull it up here because I'll give you the link to this article as well. While I pull that one up, I'm gonna give you a link to this other one. Really good article from blackenterprise.com, the state of black women-owned businesses, September 23rd, 2018. And this is from the state of black women-owned business study that comes from American Express Open each year, okay? And they do a detailed study dealing with, that's the state of women-owned businesses, and they deal with African-American-owned businesses. That comes from American Express Open each year. But let me pull up this other one because I dealt with this. I did a broadcast dealing with how Trump's government shutdown was really hurting African-Americans and our businesses. Okay, so notice how he doesn't mention that at all. He doesn't talk about getting back pay, right? After all he said he was going to do for black people and all this stuff, he doesn't talk about how we were hurt by that government shutdown that he caused. And he doesn't talk about getting back pay for these employees either. Notice that. Find that very interesting. Okay, so Janice Morgan, who is a federal contractor out of work. Now, this is, once again, from January 27, 2019, during the shutdown, right? Janice Morgan, a federal contractor out of work because of the government shutdown, spent part of January fearing that she might finally lose her husband, Milton, to his battle with multiple sclerosis. He was in intensive care. An infection has sent his heart rate and blood pressure soaring. And when she tried 9 days ago to fill his prescription for a $7,600 a month medication, another blow came. Her insurance coverage had been canceled. So even though the government shutdown, right, was, it ended, I guess, early February, okay, 2019. So it ended like 2 months ago or so, a little more than 2 months ago. People still haven't recovered from it. Now, Trump has gone on to about 20 different scandals since then, right? But you notice he doesn't talk about this. He doesn't talk about the damage that he inflicted on Americans, especially African Americans, with this shutdown after he lied to people and said Mexico was going to pay for this fake ass wall. Now, Janice Morgan called her boss the president of Unispec Enterprises, a contracting firm that provides personnel to government agencies. He told her that the shutdown had left him unable to pay the company's premiums. This is an African-American owned business, because I'll post a link here to the article. They interview the owner of the business in the article. They have a video, and they interview Janice, and they interview the owner of the business. Okay, so this has real consequences. This is once again an example of how elections have consequences, an example of how politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. Okay, so all the people who talk about, we need more businesses and economic empowerment, all that stuff, I'm all for that. But also you need to understand how government impacts business. This is an example of how government impacts business. And not only that, what about the businesses that provided services to the government employees, the restaurants, right? The nightclubs, the hair salons, the barbershops, laundromats? What about the businesses, the grocery stores that depend upon the business from those federal employees, okay, on a daily, weekly basis? Their businesses were drastically impacted from that government shutdown, these people not being paid, which meant they had to cut back on hours on their employees or lay some of their employees off also. So I understand how government impacts business because I managed a company where we had government contracts with the county of Wayne, Michigan, and the state of Michigan. So I definitely understand that. Okay. Not only that, I also helped to write public policy for the city of Detroit as well. So I have a pretty good understanding of that. Okay, let's continue here. So we posted a link here for this article from the Washington Post, January 27, 2019. This is during the government shutdown, right? Just a few months ago. It feels like we are still hostages. Federal contractors who lost health insurance during shutdown remain in limbo. Okay, and I think maybe this was right after the government shutdown. Okay, so Janice Morgan called her boss, the president of Unispec Enterprises, a contracting firm that provides personnel to government agencies. He told her that the shutdown had left him unable to pay the company's premiums for the health insurance. Soon, all 75 of Unispec's technical writers, data analysts, and economists, most of whom have their coverage through the firm, would learn of the lapse in an email. They don't have health insurance anymore. Quote, in 15 years, I've never once missed a payroll, end quote, said Wesley McClure, Unispec's founder and president. He's African-American. He said in an interview, quote, I've never once been without insurance, either for me or my employees, but that's where we are, end quote. With the shutdown now over, Janice Morgan, 62, is reporting back to her job Monday as an administrative planner for the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration. But the mile marker of reopening federal offices belies the continued suffering and long-term financial damage on the legions of federal contractors whose lost wages may never be reimbursed. And they haven't been reimbursed yet. Where this article from January 27th. With 3 months later, they haven't been reimbursed. There's no law to reimburse them. It hasn't passed Congress to reimburse them. So they're just butt out. They're just ass out. Unless the U.S. Senate, dominated by Republicans, passes a bill to pay them back wages, and Trump signs it into law. Now, in the case of Unispec, health insurance remains in limbo, and the next full paycheck may still be 4 weeks away. Okay, so you can check out the rest of the article, but this is an example of how, now this is the African-American owned business and they're making money and all this stuff, right? This is an example of how elections have consequences and politics impacts every aspect of our life. Okay, so everybody share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in. Also, African-American business owners, post the name of your business here on the thread of the broadcast. Let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. Email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. Customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. Also, if you'd like this type of information, you can donate to the African History Network. It helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, finance the African History Network show. We do Sunday nights. I do Sunday nights on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation. WFDF, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, helps us pay the bills, etc. Okay. PayPal.me/the AHN show. PayPal.me/the AHN show. Or you can go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and click on the yellow donate button right there. And you want to donate $10, $15, $25, $50, $100. We appreciate all of it. It really helps. And you can set it up for a recurring monthly donation also if you like as well. Okay. All right. So another new advertiser we have is theprofitroom.com. Theprofitroom.com. Now you're really going to like this because if you're interested in how Wall Street works, okay, we see Wall Street was setting records under President Obama. It continues to set records as well. You want to learn how to make money in the stock market. It is interesting how certain opportunities are not presented to the African American community, especially when it involves billions of dollars that are being exchanged every day through the stock market. Why should you be left out and not get a piece of the action? Okay, now theprofitroom.com is a stock market trading and education company that has mentorship programs that are designed for beginners. They teach individuals how to create generational wealth so we can pass on wealth to our children and future generations like other people do. And oftentimes when they pass wealth on, let's just keep it real, right? A lot of times when they pass wealth on to future generations, this was wealth built on the backs of enslaved Africans. Or when we look at millions of acres of land that was distributed through the Homestead Act of 1862. For 100 years, about 250 million acres of land was distributed. Okay, and African Americans almost exclusively shut out of that. And you got about 400,000 to 600,000 families today that still have land in their families that came from that maldistribution of wealth, power, and resources. This was after we worked the land for free for 246 years. We were shut out of these massive land giveaways. Okay, so they teach you how to create generational wealth through trading and investing in the financial markets. They educate you on stocks, options, futures, and Forex. Their specialty is day trading, one-on-one mentorship. Visit theprofitroom.com, theprofitroom.com for more information. And you may have seen the article that blacknews.com did on them back in 2018 as well. We posted it a few times on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network as well. Okay, so let's go to some of your questions. Post your questions here. We'll come to some of your questions. How you doing, Brittany, Herb Alchemist, Phyllis? How you all doing, Peter? Let's see who else we have here. Shed Broadcasting, your Facebook page. And so when we look at the 2020 election, it's important. Now, what I've been explaining to people is not which candidate you like right now and things like this, right? Most important thing for African Americans to do is put together a comprehensive African American agenda. That's the most important thing right now. But to be able to put together an African American agenda, you have to assess where we are now to understand which policies are, it was to understand the policies and the issues that are crucial to African Americans in improving our conditions. You have to, one, assess what our condition is now. Two, understand the history of these policies. And three, understand overall African American history and history of America in general. To be able to determine which direction we go in, which direction we go in, how do we push issues, how do we push agendas, how do we push policies? You have to understand all of this. And we need to understand the policies that Trump is reversing and President Obama had in place, and most of us don't even know these policies existed in the first place. So how do you know what policies to protect if you don't know which ones exist? This is why it's important to understand politics. Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. You know, and it's African history and culture that gives us our foundation, and that influences our economic empowerment and political empowerment. So it doesn't matter how much money we have, if that foundation is not in place, we won't know what to do with it. So consequently, we have a $1.3 trillion gross domestic product, and 97% of those dollars are spent with people that don't look like us. Why is that? Because the foundation is not in place. Okay, so everybody follow us on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network. Follow us on our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. All right, and listen to the African History Network show Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation. So we'll be on live Sunday. We have a jam-packed show. You know, we have to talk about this Ancestry.com ad, this slave romance slave era romance, ancestry.com ad. We have to talk about the Mueller report and how it does not exonerate Donald Trump. And Trump is really scared right now. That's why he's really going crazy. He's really scared right now because he's finding out. He hasn't read the Mueller report, one, but he's finding out more and more about it and how it's exposing him. So he's going crazy. And well, we have some other topics to deal with as well. Okay, who else we have here? Post your questions before we get out of here. We've got Warren, got Gina, Kim. All right, we posted a link there for Nick Knackery as well. If we just look quickly here at progress of the African American community in the during the Obama administration, most people haven't read this. Benchmark African fashion. Now, what is that, Ariana? Benchmark African fashion. Now, this African fashion, Ariana, it sounds like you should be advertising with the African History Network. Okay. Our fan page has 1 million followers. Go visit our fan page, the African History Network. We have 1 million followers there. It sounds like you should be advertising with the African History Network, okay? Email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com, customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. All right, so just very quickly, if we look at this is broken down into categories. Okay, education, labor, income, things like this. We already know that the unemployment rate of African Americans was cut in half under the Obama administration. It peaked at 16.8% in March of 2010. By December of 2016, it dropped down to 7.8%. 2.95 million jobs created under the Obama administration. This is coming out of the worst economy since the Great Depression. Okay, and okay, so the African American unemployment rate has seen a larger percentage point decline in the recovery, falling much faster than the overall unemployment rate. The real median income for Black households increased by 4.1% between 2014 and 2015. That continued in 2016 also. Every September, the Census Bureau comes out with a census report. Read the census report that comes out each September. Go to census.gov. You read that census report that comes out each September, and then they do like the full census report and the census count every 10 years. But there's a census report that comes out every September, and it deals with economic issues, median income, all different types of things like this, right? Let me see here. Let me go to talk about poverty rate for African Americans fell faster in 2015 than any other year since 1999. They talked about that. You can read some of this yourself. I wanted to go quickly here. They talk about, let me see, healthcare. Yeah. So the Affordable Health Care Act. So what a lot of people don't know about the Affordable Health Care Act is that 3 million non-elderly African Americans who did not already have insurance got insurance because of the Affordable Health Care Act. 3 million non-elderly African Americans who did not have health insurance got health insurance through the Affordable Health Care Act. When you can get health care and you get affordable health care, you can use it, you can get preventive maintenance, okay? And what happened was we saw life expectancy at birth is the highest it's ever been for African Americans in 2014. 2014 life expectancy at birth was 72.5 years for African American males and 78.4 years for African American females, the highest point in the historical series for both genders. Reason why that's tied to the Affordable Health Care Act largely because when you can get preventive maintenance, you can live longer. You can catch illnesses, diseases, cancer, all different types of things like this in the early stages when it's treatable as opposed to when it's stage 4. Okay, so we saw life expectancy as well. This also ties into economics. Why? Because the number one reason why people file for bankruptcy is because of medical bills. So when you get affordable health care, you reduce the economic strain on the family. This ties right into economic conditions. Okay? High school graduation rate for African-American students is at its highest point in history. In the 2013-2014 academic school year, 72.5% of African-American public high school students graduated within 4 years. Among African-Americans and Hispanic students, 25 and older, high school completion is higher than ever before. Among African-Americans, Hispanics, and Asian students, 25 and older, bachelor's degree attainment is higher than ever before. As of 2015, 88% of the African-American population, 25 and older, has at least a high school degree, and 23% held a bachelor's degree. So we saw, if you go through, I mean, this is just, I'm just skimming the surface. There's a lot of information here. Most people never read this. I don't know why. People don't even know it exists. I don't know why, but read through this. Now, these are all policies that are being attacked by Trump if they haven't already been reversed. Okay? And a lot of people don't know that the U.S. prison population dropped to its lowest point in 20 years under President Obama. So how is it that Trump gets credit for the First Step Act and Jared Kushner did more to push that from the White House perspective than Trump did? But President Obama doesn't get credit for the U.S. prison population dropping to its lowest point in 20 years in 2015. It dropped from a peak of 2.3 million down to 1.53 million. And that's from the December 2016 report from the Department of Justice. Newsweek.com had an article about it. They have a link to the study. Let's see here, name of the article. I'll post a link here. So a lot of people don't know this information. The U.S. prison population exceeded 1.5 million in 2015. This is from December 29, 2016. Okay. The U.S. prison population fell the most in almost 4 decades to 1.53 million inmates in 2015, resulting in the lowest rate of incarceration in a decade. Okay, this is coming from the Department of Justice. Why isn't this talked about? I just find it interesting. None of this is brought up. Act like it didn't even exist. And when you read why it took place because of changes in policies and sentencing when we look at the state level. And then also, let's see, the drop has been driven by changes in federal and state corrections policies that include drug treatment programs and the sentencing of fewer nonviolent drug offenders to federal prisons, the department said in its year-end report on prison populations. Well, that comes from Attorney General Eric Holder's 2013 initiative called Smart on Crime, which Attorney General Jeff Sessions called soft on crime and reversed May of 2017. Jeff Sessions redeclared the war on drugs May of 2017. But this deals with how elections have consequences. So check out this. We'll post this link here also. This is from Newsweek. Let's see here. Let's go back to that. It's from Newsweek. Okay. A lot of people don't know this. Let's look at some more of your comments before we get out of here. Okay, Ariana said, thank you. Okay, yeah, be sure to email us. African-American business owners, be sure to email us. We can get you up and running today. Customer service at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Our current promotion, buy 3 months for the price of 1. Okay, only got a few more spots left, so I ain't gonna be able to get a whole lot, but I mean, email me. We got 4 or 5 more spots left. Okay. All right. And then lastly, our last new advertiser is Dark Magentas. Now, Mother's Day is coming up. This is something great for the ladies, Dark Magentas, and this is something good for men who like ladies also. Okay. Now, Dark Magenta specializes in creating home spa products based on nature's healing and soothing properties. Dark magenta carries essential oil and cannabidiol infused bath bombs, shower steamers, sugar scrubs, and soaps. They include oils and herbs such as lavender, rosemary, eucalyptus, sage, cedarwood, oatmeal, shea butter, alum, and cannabidiol, and more. They also carry oil diffusers and 100% pure essentials. Visit them at darkmagentas.com, magentas.com, and indulge in these treats for the body and the mind. So when you come home from a long day of work and you kick off your high heel shoes, instead of Calgon taking you away, dark magentas can take you away. Okay, so this is something great. Mother's Day is coming up, and also summertime is coming up as well. So visit darkmagentas.com. All right, let me see if we have any more questions here before I get out of here. Regardless of what we call each other, whites still call us the N-word. Well, some of them do. Let's see here. Willie, how you doing, Willie? Okay, look, hey, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it corrects wrong behavior. Remember, elections have consequences. We need to put together a comprehensive African-American agenda, a reasonable one. Okay, not we want to escalate in every household, not some ignorant nonsense, but some reasonable stuff, right? Put together a comprehensive African-American agenda. We need to present that to all the candidates, not just the Democratic candidates. Present that to all the candidates as well. And then we have to understand what I call political self-defense. Number one, with political self-defense, we have to understand, we must understand the law better than they understand the law. If they're using the law to trap us, we must understand the law better than they understand the law. That in the foundation of law is understanding the U.S. Constitution, number one. Two, we have to, when we look at political candidates, we need to look at how their policies and issues best match up with ours. How their policies and issues best match up with ours. Who can create an environment for us to push our agenda the farthest and get the most accomplished? Who can create an environment for us to push our agenda the farthest and get the most accomplished? Are they going to be an advocate for issues that we're advocating for? They're going to be obstructionists. Who is going, we have to understand the concept of protecting our gains. This is a concept that unfortunately many African Americans do not understand, because we vote transactionally. We may vote in each election, but we don't connect the previous election and the policies put in place, what happened in the previous election, to the next election. So we have to understand the concept of protecting our gains. Who is going to best protect the policies in place that benefit us, that we fought for, and at the same time create that environment for us to push our agenda the farthest. So we'll vote from election to election, but we don't focus on protecting our gains. Okay, so we must understand political self-defense. And we have to understand how politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. Okay, so these are things that are very, very important. And we need to go look at the some previous Black agendas. We need to look at the one that 60 civil rights organizations presented to the Obama administration in August of 2017. That was a 33-page agenda. We need to look at that. There were some things accomplished on that one. And let me see if I can find it. Yeah, August 23rd, 2013. Here's the PDF of it. Crew of42.com has it. What was it called? Because I have all these agendas. 21st Century Agenda for Jobs and Freedom. Yeah, this was about 60 civil rights organizations, National Urban League, National Action Network, NAACP, towards a new civil rights movement for economic empowerment and justice, 21st century agenda for jobs and freedom, African-American leaders convening national policy priorities, okay? So we'll post a link here to this. Then we need to look at the 125-page agenda that the executive leadership of the Congressional Black Caucus presented to the Trump administration in March of 2017. It's called, what's it called? Not We Have a Lot to Lose. It's called What Did Trump Do? That's what it's called. What Did Trump Do? Okay. No, it's called, no, I think it's called We Have a Lot to Lose. I think that's what it's called. We Have a Lot to Lose. What Did Trump Do was the first 100 days. Hold on. Okay, this is at cbc.house.gov, official website of the Congressional Black Caucus. I mean, it's a fantastic agenda they put together. A lot of people don't know it exists. I'm not sure why, but we have a lot to lose. Yeah, that's what it's called. Let's see. Okay, and here's the PDF of it. You can download it. I have it printed up. It's in my backpack because a lot of these studies and things like this, I take to the printer, get them printed. Yeah, we have a lot to lose. We have a lot to lose. Solutions to advance Black families in the 21st century. Okay, I mean, it's excellent. The first thing they do is lay out some history. Okay, on page 8, they lay out history of they deal with African-American history, how we got into this predicament. And they deal with some of the history of slavery and Reconstruction, Jim Crow segregation, Civil Rights Movement, the Great Depression, World War II. And then they lay out problems plaguing the African-American community. They break it down by category. And then they lay out actual policies. They lay out actual bills in Congress that specifically address the conditions and the problems we're talking about. Okay? You can download that. That's the 125-page agenda from the Congressional Black Caucus. Okay? That's called We Have a Lot to Lose. They're answering Trump's question. Trump asked the question, what the hell do you have to lose? They're saying we have a lot to lose. Solutions to advance Black families in the 21st century. Then, of course, we have Powernomics by Dr. Claude Anderson. One of my teachers, you've seen some of my interviews with Dr. Claude Anderson. Visit his website, powernomics.com. But we have to put together a comprehensive Black agenda, African-American agenda, based upon reasonable policies, okay, and present that to all of the candidates. And then at the same time, we have to understand that it's illegal in general, unless you're dealing with something regarding a lawsuit like the $1.2 billion President Obama paid out to Black farmers because of that lawsuit, and nobody wants to talk about that. But it's illegal to write a policy that is only for one race of people. Okay, that's illegal. But what you can do is you can write policies that disproportionately positively impact people who are disproportionately negatively impacted by policies. So when you talk about student loan forgiveness and people can apply for student loan forgiveness, that disproportionately positively impacts African-American women if they apply for it. Why? Because African-American women carry the most student loan debt in the country, on average $30,400 compared to, I think it's about 22,000, something like that for white people. So when you couple that with the fact, and go back and watch my broadcast dealing with Black women in equal pay. Black women can't wait 106 years for equal pay. When we deal with Black Women's Equal Pay Day, it fell on August 2nd, 2018, because it takes the average African-American woman 20 months to make the same amount of money that it takes the average white male to make in 12 months. African-American women make 63 cents for every dollar that the white male makes. When you talk about forgiving student loan debt for African-American women, that has a huge impact on the family because they're on average making 63 cents on every dollar. And then they carry more student loan debt than anybody else. Now, this is just one of the policies coming from President Obama, but the policy doesn't say Black or African-American on it, but it disproportionately positively impacts African-Americans, especially African-American women. This is an example of what I'm talking about. But if you don't know any of this stuff exists, you just run around here just repeating this nonsense you hear other people repeat. And then you let a fool like Trump get reelected. Read the article. Actually, let me see. We'll post a video. I'll give you the name of the video. You can go watch the video that I did where I get deep into this, because in 5 states, so on the average working lifetime of an African American woman, 18 to about 65, because of this racial wage gap, she suffers from $800,000 in lost earnings over the working lifetime from about 18 to 65. She suffers from $800,000 in lost earnings. Okay, what could you do with an extra $800,000 over your working lifetime? Think about that. See, this is real. Now, what I find interesting when Trump wants to brag about the low unemployment rate of African Americans, things like this, one, he doesn't want to say that the unemployment rate for African Americans is double that for whites. He doesn't even want to acknowledge that. Then he doesn't want to acknowledge the wage gap for African American men compared to white men, and African American women compared to white men. He doesn't want to even acknowledge that. Let me see. So check out this article from Vox.com, VOX.com. Tuesday is Black Women's Equal Pay Day. Here's what you should know about the gap. And where do they talk about? Okay. On average, Black female college grads make 37% less than white males with the same level of education. And Black women are saddled with far more student loan debt than their white peers, according to research from the American Association of University Women. Black women with more education don't just struggle to access many of the high-paying positions available to their white counterparts. They earn less than white men and women holding the same job. African-American women earn less than white men and women holding the same job, whether the job is part-time as a cashier or a salary position as a business executive. So you see, these are real issues. Okay. All right, guys, look, hey, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right knowledge corrects wrong behavior. You can donate to the African History Network, paypal.me/the AHN show. If you'd like this type of information, you want to support us, this helps us keep doing the research, finance the radio show, stay on the air, pay the bills, etc. Right now, it's corrects wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you next time. Peace.